This week on Three Questions with Corey Kareem.
I heard the Minister Farrakhan say that. He said, thinking too little of yourself is equal to the sin of thinking too much of yourself. He said, you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life who you are. The hustler must die in order for the CEO to emerge. Anytime you spend over 30%, that's when your credit will be
never turn back. Only go clockwise. Never go back.
Now, before we get started with this beautiful conversation, please help a brother out and click on that follow button on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Three Questions with Corey Kareem, the podcast where we sit down with some amazing people who are doing some amazing things. And that's right. You guessed it. We ask them 3 questions, sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I know. I read the comments. But rather than just talk about my guests, their wins, or their successes, we tend to start the conversation around their failures, more specifically, the lessons that they learn from those individual experiences. And then we expand the conversation from there. So with that being said, my guest today is changing the game in the world of personal finance. He's a Morehouse graduate, and he's the CEO and founder of CreditFixrr, which is a revolutionary platform that empowers individuals to take control of their financial future. Hailing from the streets of Compton, California, his journey reflects one of resilience, perseverance, and a steadfast commitment to standing on business. I love that. With CreditFixrr, he's bridging the gap in financial literacy and equipping users with the tools needed to repair, build, and leverage credit effectively. So, without further ado, the man on a mission to democratize financial knowledge and empower underserved communities to achieve financial independence, no other than Mr. Khabir Muhammad. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Corey, it's an honor to be on your podcast, brother. That was
it,
quite
man.
the introduction.
Thank you, brother, man. Listen, it's easy to put an intro together when someone has so many accolades and is doing so many big things, both for the market and the community and the culture.
Yeah, man. Gratitude. That's all I can say. You know, I'm very humbled and grateful, you know, to be in the position that I am in, and you know, continuously striving to, you know, remain in and do.
Amazing. So, you know, for my listeners, for my audience, this is actually Khabir's second time. We did a impromptu, in-person, kind of quick podcast recording at the Podcast Summit in Atlanta, where we first met each other. We were briefly introduced because obviously from Toronto, you know, Khabir is from Compton. It was at the height of the Kendrick and Drake beef. And so we just thought it'd be really kind of funny and timely to kind of record something real quick. So that's how we got to know each other. And here we are expanding upon that. So Khabir, like the intro, like I said in my intro, with the Three Questions podcast, we like to start the conversation around failure, difficult times, moments. So with that being said, tell me about a moment in time where you had to face your biggest challenge, mistake, or setback. Then what happened? So what was that challenge? How did you overcome it? And most importantly, what did you learn from it?
Wow. I mean, I have a lot of those. You know, but the one that definitely comes to mind is the moment that, you know, the time back in 2015 when I got fired from my job, like the best job you could ever have, you know. And I actually have some like currently and some that actually recently happened, but the one that comes to mind, I'm the type of person, man, I like to, you know, just speak from the heart. I don't like to think about what I say, but if it comes to me, I like to, express it. So that's the one that's coming to mind, and I can give more if you want. But Man, I was working for Boeing at the time. I was a um, software engineer for the Boeing company in Chicago. In fact, they had moved me out to Chicago, me and my family. So, I ended up packing up and moving from Maryland to Chicago. And I mean, I'm making $17,000 a month. Um, I mean, it's going well, man. I'm like 2 levels below the CTO, who is now
Mm.
the CEO of Boeing, currently. And so, man, things were going great, but I ended up getting put on a pit. And being in corporate America fairly new. I'm 2 years out of college at the time, and I'm just like, man, what am I doing wrong? And come to find out, there's politics when it comes to working in corporate America, especially when you're a young, black man, you know, in a space, working at a high level. You don't consider the politics when you're at that stage, new in the game. And so, they would put stuff in the email saying, critiquing certain things, and I'm just not picking up on it. And so, anyways, I get put on the pip, and by my first manager. 3 months later, the new manager comes in and she puts me on the pip too. And then
Mm.
the 3 months later, she leaves, and then the new one put me on the pip. And I'm just trying to figure this thing out. Come to find out, I'm making too much money.
Mm.
I'm making maybe $3,000 less than what the manager is making. The
Mm.
project manager. So they just like, you know what? We got to get this guy up out of here. He's doing too much. I guess that's the perspective. But anyways, I got fired and I lost my job. I had to figure out how to get my cars and stuff back to Maryland. I had to pay for it on my own and everything. And so that was a trial in itself. But at that moment in time, once that happened, I realized I didn't want anybody to have so much control over my life, you
Mm.
know, especially as it relates to, finances. I was getting treated like crap, but I was dealing with it because I was making a certain amount of money.
Mm.
And so I never wanted people to control my finances or control me. And I would never allow money to control me ever again. And so that's when I first got really focused on entrepreneurship and ownership. And that was so etched into my heart to say, you know what, I got to do something for myself.
Mm. I love that. You know what? And I can relate to that. And for those that don't know, a PIP, performance improvement plan, company, corporate jargon, lingo to put you on, like, listen, you got a couple of months to figure this out before we let you go, type thing. That's what they do. So no, man, I could relate to that. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, specifically towards the office politics portion, because sometimes you could come in, you're doing the job, doing well at the job, but maybe there's not a what they call culture fit, right? I've gotten that lingo used on me, and sometimes that could be a legit argument, right? Some people
Yeah,
don't fit into the company culture, so it's not to be like that's always smoke, but it's so vague that it could be like a way to push somebody out. So man, like I've definitely been there before. It is kind of confusing, and that feeling that you're talking about, being you never want to be at the mercy of somebody else's decision, because when you work for a big corporation, even though the ones that are well intentioned and have great company culture, at the end of the day, because it's not yours, there's only so much control that you can have. So I can totally understand that feeling that, hey, I never want this to happen to me like this again. If I'm going to get fired, it's going to be because a client fires me that I brought on myself from my own organization. So for people in that situation, that have been through what you've been through in 2015, working for Boeing and getting fired, is what would you tell them to do? I mean, obviously you have the message of create your own, but like, how would you guide someone to get towards that process?
Yeah, so all my life, my dad always taught me that you got to do something for yourself or suffer the consequences. At some
Mm.
point, and so that was I heard it most of my life, but it was like, okay, how do I go about doing that? It seemed like, when you make it $17,000 a month, it's like, shit, why would I do that?
Mm.
When you're making
Comfortable,
money,
yeah.
why would I do that? You're comfortable, right?
Right.
You don't think about the ups and the downs as it relates to, making money, right? But or working for someone. And so I would say, like, man, always have that in mind, understand the fact that things are always changing. Things will never remain the same. I mean, you look at markets and how they change, even like union jobs, those things aren't the same anymore. And so I tell people all the time, and my dad used to say, still away, always go into it, give somebody your all, understand the business, but understand that you learn the business, understand like how the business works, so that you can take that and you can implement it for something for yourself. And so fortunately enough, I sat at, I sat in rooms. I sat in some really huge rooms, and I heard business, and I picked up what they were putting down. And crazy enough, a lot of that I've learned in working in big companies, I apply today in my business. And it's just like I tell people all the time, it's like, you know what? Start working on having a business of your own. It's don't when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were just, making, starting jobs and companies, and everything was going really well, but that era is kind of over. So people didn't want to get jobs anymore. Everybody was working from home. Everybody, they kind of talk bad about having a job. But me, I say, no, working a job is a good thing. Never look down on somebody that's working a job. You know what I mean? And so for me, I say that job that you're working, do that and do that well, but also learn how to solve a problem. Start your own business. And it's easy to start a business. All you have to do is find a problem and solve it. And there's billions of problems. There's infinite amount of problems out there. And so, and this is what I tell my son all the time. It's never too early to teach people these types of things. If you want to make money, solve problems. That's it.
I love that. I love a couple of things. I think the best way to look for a business to start is to look at what problems exist. Maybe it's one that personally impacted you, because that's one you'd most likely be more passionate about. I love that part. The other part I love, Khabir, is I love the part where you say, yo, there's nothing bad about working a career job if it's something that you really want to do, or something that you're passionate about. Because I feel like a lot of times, especially within our community, in the last 20 years, let's just say 15 to 20 years, there's been a big push on being your own boss, right? Being an entrepreneur, which is a great message. But I think that message has been pushed at the sense of, for lack of better words, shitting on people that work a 9 to 5, right? And if you think about it, if you're telling people, hey, go create your own business, create a company so you can become a millionaire or be whatever level of success that you aspire to, then most likely to get to that level, you're going to need to hire what? Employees. So what are you saying to the people that you're going to hire that you ain't shit, right? So it's always a funny message. Like, I get what we're trying to say here is, empower yourself so that you have more control over your life and your personal finances, but don't push that message at the expense of beating down people who work a 9 to 5. Because if you're going to grow and scale a company, you're going to hire people to work for you.
Absolutely. Right. And if you weren't a great employee, you wouldn't even know how to hire a great employee. Because you get out of life not what you want, you get out of life who you are. I heard Eric Thomas say that back in 2016. I'm telling you, like, a lot of this stuff, after I got fired, it taught me so much. I started looking into entrepreneurship, looking into personal development. And I remember that statement right there. He said,
say that one more time. Say that one more time.
He said, you don't get out of life what you want. You get out of life who you are. So you're going to start adapting and bringing the same people around you, basically who you are. You're going to hire who you are. So it's a lot that goes into becoming an entrepreneur. Because one thing they said, like, if you really want to be, I forget the quote exactly, is if you want to be a business owner, you got to kill the hustler. And it's so
Ooh.
and it's so
Preach.
and it's so
It is Sunday, y'all. Khabir came. He came.
but it's so important to understand that you're gonna go through phases, and this is what they don't tell you when you start your business. We've never been trained on how to run a business. There's so much that goes into it. A lot of times you are gonna be a hustler. You're gonna work 14 hours when you used to work 8 hours and go home. You're gonna work 20 hours to keep this thing rolling. You know, you gotta learn that. And it's funny to me, and I'm jumping real quick, but taxes, that's a thing. Man, taxes is a thing. People talk, they see what's funny online, especially in this space. A lot of people, they'll show their plaques, say, hey, I made $1 million. They don't tell you that they got number one, pay taxes on that $1 million, right?
Yep.
And then two, you most likely ran ads to pay to get customers to make sales. So you really didn't make $1 million. In a lot, so it's a lot of stuff, and they leverage that to actually get people to, want to buy into what they're selling. And a lot of people, they hustlers or they just good salesmen. They're not business owners. And this is what this is what I had to come and understand, not only because, I was growing into it and I'm learning like, hey, I'm hustling right now. I'm not a business owner. You're not a business owner until you're not just hiring VAs from people overseas. You're not a real business owner in the US until you hiring US people. That's a whole nother story.
Preach. I'm feeling this. Something you said to that note. I think David Shan said this. He did a post. He says, making $1 million doesn't make you a millionaire because you have taxes, right? If you made $1 million, great, huge accomplishment. Take your flowers, your kudos, all that. But that doesn't make you a millionaire because you have taxes, right? So, man, exactly, man. So I hear that message loud and clear, and the hustling message. I think, on that note, really quick, in our culture, in our community, even though we're talking about entrepreneurship, business owner, mindset, all of that stuff, all the buzzwords, we're really still preaching the hustler, the hustler sermon, if you will. That's what we're really pushing out there. And you're right. It is, even though the spirit is the same, there's a switch in mentality because business owners, what they become really good at is creating systems, leveraging their time and their effort. So it's not all about me and just about me. No, it's about your people. It's bigger than you. And I think our culture, community hasn't gotten there yet at scale. But I think to your point, Khabir, we hear a lot more of the hustler message than the business owner message.
Yeah. In that quote, it goes, the hustler must die in order for the CEO to emerge. That's the quote when you started talking. But yeah, that's the thing, man. You're right. We have a huge hustler message being pushed, and not enough people talking about the systems that you got to actually build. They think systems is automation. Nah, that's not it. Automation is a system that's in your business, but you got to have SOPs for everything. How you start your day, how you treat your family, how you handle your family, how you deal with personal, finances. Man, it's you got personal finances too. A lot of people mixing them, and that's not a good thing. So it's so much, man. And I can tell you this because I didn't been through it. I can talk to it.
Yeah.
I used to be afraid to pay my taxes. But so I'm glad I never floss, money and what I make and all that, because it comes at a price, man. And people look at you and expect you to be that. And then, to be honest with you, man, that whole flashy lifestyle is not all it's cracked up to be, man. And that's another thing that, I've seen a lot in our space where, and not to get away from, this hustler conversation, because I would like to stay on that. But the cars, the clothes, and the money, man, that's not real happiness. I see a lot of corny, but a lot of, sick and tired millionaires. They don't really have a life. They didn't use everybody around them to get where they are. You know, so they're just really not happy. You know, and one of the greatest things that I've heard before I started making a lot of money was from this man that was making 50 million a year. He asked a group of us, we were in a mastermind that I paid for and to go to. And he said, "Hey man, how much you want to make this year?" A couple people said, "I want to make 5 million, I want to make a million," you know. And he was like, he said, "You know what?" He said, when you make about 300 to 500,000 a year, you could do everything I can do. Literally, you can eat all the best restaurants I can eat at. You can buy the Ferrari, you can buy the Benz, you can get the nice home. You can do everything I can do. You know, but he was like, so making a lot of money isn't the goal. And this is coming from somebody that got the money, at least that's what he said, but that resonated with me early on. And so I never chased the money. And obviously, of course, you chase the money. Revenue is the goal, but that wasn't the mission. And that's why I'm so happy and glad that I stood on my mission and what I built the company on, the mission statement. Most companies, a lot of people don't even have mission statements for what they're doing. They got money statements.
Facts.
And that's what you rely on when things is rough. When you got a strong mission, when your revenue goes down, when you make mistakes and your payroll is 50% of your revenue right at the moment, you like, man, I got to cut down. You stand on that mission. That's what it's about. That's when you start growing and understanding that, I'm a real business owner. I'm a real CEO. Like, these things happen, but you can't, it's hard to come back from it when all you do is show flashiness and cars and clothes and, showing how much you spent on your Amex credit card and all that. No.
Yo, so much to touch on there. And it's crazy because you're right. I think once you get to a certain level and you start to acquire a certain lifestyle, dabble in it, if you will, you realize at first it's cool, but after a while, it's not really what it's cracked up to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's really not for me at this stage. I just turned 40 this year, and I could say that for me, where I'm going to kind of spend money, if I could use that word, on like leisure like things, is traveling. That's my vice. Seeing the world, seeing how different cultures go about their business, being exposed to new foods, new peoples, all of that.
Yeah.
But the things, man, listen. Yo, I'll tell everybody, man, my Beamer is like 2014. It's paid off and it looked perfectly fine. And trust me, I've gotten the itch. I like cars.
Yeah.
I like cars. I want to be very honest. I like cars. But you know what? This past summer I had the opportunity. I could have gotten the car I want because I have a guys group. We talk about stuff. We do dream building and stuff.
Yeah.
And the car I wanted was very much in reach. But I was like, you know what? My goal this year was to get an investment property. And I was like, and that's what I ended up doing. Because I know long term, that's obviously the much better route to choose. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. I didn't want the car. I didn't want that. I want everyone to be very clear. But I knew, like, to me, I was like, I know I'm not going to care in like a month or two. And
that's the thing right there.
yeah, I'm not going to care too much in a month or two. And the real estate transaction is going to teach me so much more than the gains that I'm expecting to get in 2, 3, 4 years from now. But just the process of being a landlord, the process of going through that whole mortgage process, all of that, the things that you learn, I just think it's just that to me is more attractive at this particular stage in my life right now.
Yeah, for sure. Same with me, man. I'm 36 now, and I'm a father of 4, and my whole perspective on life has shifted. And I know I always knew it would around this age, and here I am, man. I get more joy, seeing my children, play soccer, or my daughter doing gymnastics, and just I'm at that stage now where it's like I want to see them thrive and shine. But my goal has always been able to establish, something for them, establish a business, establish ownership. And I think that that's my biggest focus over things, because I got nice things, and it's funny enough, I don't wear half the stuff I got. You know, I like watches. I got 2 Rolexes, you know. I like watches and shoes. I'm looking at a whole thing of shoes right now, but
Yeah.
I don't even wear half this stuff. I spend a lot of my time establishing this business, meetings and stuff like that. And when I step out, sometimes I step out fly, but 90% of the
Yeah.
time, bro, I'm in a hat and man, come on, man. So
Yeah.
those things are just things. And after you get them, they're just things. So
Absolutely.
I like what you said about, traveling and creating experiences. And, fortunately, I'm happy that my children, they aren't into things. They're more so about experiences. They've been to Africa multiple times. They've traveled to Panama. They've been places. They've seen different things. And now, I'm glad that when you can't unsee certain things. And once you see it, now your brain has expanded. It's like a rubber band. Now they have a different mindset than I had growing up, so.
That's crazy. Cause you know what? Actually, that just made me think of like one of the things I'd like to do before I leave this earth is I've always thought about starting a nonprofit. And a nonprofit, part of what we would do is we'd take kids that live in underserved communities, at-risk communities, however you want to phrase it, and we take them somewhere across the globe. Like take them to like South Africa. They'll be out there for like 2 to 3 weeks, get to experience the culture firsthand. And the idea, the logic behind it is that experience for those 15, 20 kids that you get to take over there, they're going to come back and be like, yo, I thought I had it crazy.
Yeah.
But the shit I just lived and went through, I'm like, yo, they just have this newfound like perspective on life and what it means, what hardship is. Like they see that there's levels to that, not to diminish their struggle, but to see like, oh, okay, I'm struggling, but that was a different level of struggle I saw. But I also saw prosperity, and these people were able to make prosperity out of much less than what we have over here. And now it messes with their whole psyche, and that's what I want. And I think I would love to do that someday.
Yeah, bro, I think you should. I think you will too.
I believe that. I received that. So, touching on a business aspect again, I would love it if you could share from a business perspective, what has been your biggest challenge running, launching CreditFixrr thus far, and how did you kind of work through that?
I think I'm in this stage now where I'm operating as a CEO, and
Mhm.
something I've never done before. Where I think when I first started, I was you could say I was a CTO.
Mm.
Obviously it's a software company, and so I was operating from that standpoint. I was coding. It wasn't so much focus on sales and ads, and in fact, like for the first year and a half, it was just all word of mouth. And so fortunately people were sharing it and it was growing and people loved the mission of CreditFixrr. And so I was able to grow. But now I'm in a position now where I'm learning how to be a CEO. Now I kind of hint on taxes and stuff like that, hiring, firing. And like one of the biggest things that I ran into, like I mentioned, like payroll being over 50%, I got to a point to where I had all VAs or virtual assistants on my team. And I was the primary person doing it all, from coding, not all coding, because I kind of hired people to help with that. But I was still doing coding. I was doing sales. I was doing customer service. I was doing the knowledge base. And then I got to a point to where I was exhausted, because the moment I had jumped in, putting myself out there and doing, being on camera, that showed me that you gotta have that dog in you if you're trying to do all this. So I got to a point to where I hired US people. I said, let me find the experts and let them do what they do. And not realizing, I'm saying, like, I'm asking, like, okay, what's your number? I'm respecting you as a CEO, as a expert in your area, and I'm gonna do my best to pay them what they ask for. And I had expectations and KPIs I expected them to reach, so that it would still kind of grow. But again, not everything goes as expected, and I found myself in a position to where my payroll was over 50%, not to mention expenses, not to mention marketing expenses.
Right.
So you could see how you could put yourself in a hole. But being a leader, man, for me, I lead by example. And so there was times, I'll be honest with you, where, I didn't pay myself. I'm like, you know what? Is this what you do? But I had to go get some consulting. Cause again, like if you want to do big business, you better have you some consultants and somebody some counsel that can help you in areas that you don't see and help you make decisions so you don't fall. So I can talk about these things because I went through it. And so,
Right.
one of the most difficult things is firing people, because like working with me, man, I treat people like family. And I had to learn that, like, man, no. At the end of the day, you better do business. You can create the family culture, but
Right.
at the root of everything, you better have KPIs and numbers and stand on business.
I love that. I love that. You know it's crazy. You saying that, you know, create the family culture, but this is still a business at the end of the day. It reminds me of something I heard kind of on a similar note. And the guy said, because usually people have a hard time, especially if you're a people person, you're the glue guy, you want to build like this family like culture. And he said, a lot of times people have difficulty doing the hard thing. So they kind of stay away from it, or they let it linger a lot longer than it should have.
Yeah.
And he said, the hard thing is usually the right thing. So whatever that thing is that you're thinking, I don't want to do this, I don't, it's uncomfortable, whatever you're saying, whatever the narrative is, that's usually the right thing to do. And I've definitely had my moments on that, you know. And so when you just brought that up, I just thought of that comment I heard not too long ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, you put it in such a way, because, I recently had to do something like that, fire somebody. And I fired people before, but not people that you know, I ain't never had to fire a U.S. person. So that's even harder, because it's a different lifestyle here. You know what I mean? But hey, man, I let things linger too long. And because I was afraid. But again, when you got counsel, I'm a firm believer. I've been taught, like, once you know how to approach a thing properly, it's easy. You got it. You know what to do. And so, I found the right approach. And hiring and firing is a skill. They say hire fast. They say what? Hire fast, fire faster, or something like that.
I think it's hire slow, fire fast, or something like that. Yeah.
Hire slow, fire fast. But it's a skill to even do that. And so for me, I let things linger. I didn't really have the skill set to really understand what to look for and how to even, a better skill is being proactive, not bringing things into your environment so that you protect that. So like I said, man, when you a hustler, you hustle. When you got systems in place, you start becoming a CEO.
Love it, man. Wise words right there, y'all. Okay, so I know that you're on a mission to democratize financial knowledge and help those in underserved communities repair and build their credit. But out of all the challenges in our community, and to be specific, I'm talking about the Black community here for a second. Why did you choose that one, as in credit repair, credit building? And where does that drive and motivation come from?
Okay. So I'll say, in short, it chose me. I had bad credit. I had went through the experience, and you hear this often. Where they pay people to fix their credit and they didn't get the results that they're looking for. That happened to me, but it happened to the wrong person. It shouldn't. If I got my credit fixed, I can say it happened to the right person. I'm the right one for it to happen to, because now I had the knowledge of how to create software. And so that just only once it happened to me, I said, you know what? And I learned how to do it myself. And once I figured out, like, wait a minute, I didn't pay you all this money and it ain't that hard to do myself. I was like, okay, bet. Let me go. You got the right one. Because now I'm finna do it myself, and I'm gonna show everybody else how to do it themselves. And so, you asked me, what was the second part of that question you asked me? Because it was something I wanted to say to that.
Yeah. Where does that drive and motivation come from?
Yeah, so it's rooted in always doing right. You know what I mean? Being right to people. Um, that drive comes. I don't like seeing people being done wrong. You know what I mean? I can't even be cool with you if I know you being fake around people or you using people. I can't do that. That's why, like, I mean, a lot of times in the space, man, I'm not buddy with some of these people in this space, and because of how they move, and I know how they move, and I'm just like, bro, you lying right now. Why are you lying to these people, and they buying off your lies? And so I can't, like, for me, it's just like, man, why don't you just give it to them straight, regardless if you're gonna win or not? You know, I understand, like, you got to put a price to whatever you're doing, because ain't no such thing as free, especially here in America. It's really never no free. And it's funny, and I'm trying to stay on this point, but, you know, even when they say, hey, my free webinar, my free this, they selling you, they about to sell you on the back end, you know? So, I mean, it's not a bad marketing strategy. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just pointing out the fact that there's nothing free.
Absolutely.
You know? But
absolutely.
Just to bring it home, that's what drove me, man, to build CreditFixrr. That's what inspired me, was, you know, me having bad credit, going through it, and me being the right person for that to happen too, because I had the skill set, and I just married the two, and I learned as I went. It took me I'm in like my 5th year since the thought and me building it to me launching it 3 years ago. You know, I'm here now. I'm in it, you know. And I'm still learning too. There's things I'm learning. There's things I'm changing. But, you know, I think the thing that really like drives me is just empowering people. That's like my biggest thing. I just see so much value in people, and I believe in people even when they don't believe in themselves. And I think that they can do it because I know they can do it. And like for me, like coming from where I come from, like having to figure it out, I had to figure it out. You know, I come from a family of 8 children in one household, and it wasn't a lot of time focused on, no, you got this going on. No, you better learn how to figure it out. And so, you know, that's what I tell my son, bro. Before you come to me, you better have tried to figure it out, because I know you can do it. And then if you can't figure it out, I'm gonna show you how you can figure it out.
I love that. I think that's one of the things I know you and I have in common is just good energy. You want to be around people with good energy that are doing things the right way, that are being integral as much as possible. But you know what was also personal to me about your story about once having bad credit. I also once had bad credit, and it was for a very specific reason. I never mind. It was a point where I was making the lowest amount of money I ever made, and I was in my late 20s. I'm being very transparent here. I've had some shifts in my life that happened that threw me off course. And I remember I started dating this girl, and we lived together, and then we broke up, and then I moved out. And me kind of being a nice guy, and I know she was in transition between jobs. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna let you keep the cable and the internet in my name until you're almost sorted out your work situation. And this is coming from a girl that was doing pretty well. She was making 6 figures at the time I met her, but her opportunity had got messed up and whatnot. She was in a different phase in her life financially. Yo, Khabir, 7 months from that time, my guy, I get a phone call. This collections company. They're like, they call me up, say I owe $750 for cable. I'm like, I was like, what do you mean? I don't even have you guys. And then I was like, oh yes, I allowed her to keep it in my name, and she just stopped paying. And that hit my credit down to like I was in the 500s, bro, like 540 or something. I was down there, and I was just like, oh, I remember that, and I remember, oh man, like I had to take that one on the L. Because that was a mistake that I made. Because I talked to so many people that are like, oh, you could go, confront. I'm like, there's no winning in this situation if I confront this woman. There's no winning for me. But that's my personal story to having bad credit because it took me some time to build that back up. Now I'm in a much better situation, but I could definitely relate to once having bad credit for sure.
You know what, man? Credit scores to me don't mean nothing. You know,
Mm,
we've been made to fear what a credit score is. We've been made to, hide our credit score. Like, oh, I got a 630. I'm afraid to show it.
mhm.
But when you got an 850, you like, oh, look what I got. Look what I got. But truth be told, man,
Yeah.
truth be told, it's not so much about your credit score.
Preach. Let me
It's
know.
more so about your credit profile. And a
Mm,
lot of times, like, people's credit scores will drop tremendously, but they can literally jump at a
mhm,
fast rate as well, depending on what you have on your credit report. You got to understand, like, a person with let's say a 743 and a person with a 675 or a 680, or that person with a 740, let's just say 740, they only got one account on there that they've been paying, maybe got a car loan on there that they've been paying. That's it.
mhm,
That's great, but that credit profile is not really strong. They can't, the
mhm,
algorithm can't really gauge whether you're a good person that can handle a lot of debt. And so that person might apply for a credit card and may very well get it, but they'll get a lower limit. But they're like,
mm,
hey, we've only seen you leverage this amount of credit, so we only going to give you 2,500. You're like, I can't really do nothing with that. But that person with the 680, but they got 16 primary trade lines on there. They
mhm,
got a home loan, personal loan that they paid off, things
mhm,
like that. Car loan paid off, but they got a late payment or a late payment here or there. They're like, you know what? You've managed debt over the years fairly well. So I'm going to still give you this credit card. So the underwriter is going to look at it and say, okay, you do fairly well with that. You had a late payment 18 months ago. Okay, it's
mhm,
within 2 years, but hey, ever since then you paid on time. You'll get this card and we'll give you 25,000.
mm,
You know, so it varies. So credit score is really not the thing that most people should focus on. It's mostly focused on strategies, on how to get what you want to get, like whether it's a home or a car, and funny, not funny enough, but interesting enough, you have different credit scores for those very things. So for a
mm,
home loan, you got a FICO, what they look at, FICO 4 and FICO 5.
mm.
For credit cards, they're looking at FICO 8 now, and they're about to introduce FICO 10. So there's different FICO scores for certain things that you're applying for. So underwriters are looking at different FICO scores on the back end, and
Right.
everybody's just looking at their you got FICO and then you got Vantage scores, and Vantage scores are still good too. Like,
And what's that for the people listening here that might not know what that is?
so FICO is a scoring model, and Vantage
Mm,
scores are a scoring model.
mm,
FICO has been out longer than Vantage. Banks use Vantage scores behind the scenes. When they're
mhm.
extending you credit, they tend to use the FICO score, right? Because it's the most popular and it's most one used across the board. Now, Vantage is actually coming out with Vantage 4.0, where that's going to be, it kind of balances out and it's kind of equal to FICO. So the Vantage score is actually coming up in the game. So don't sleep on Vantage scores. A lot of people say, oh, I just want to see my FICO. Yeah, it's good to know that for sure. Right? Get
Mm-mm.
your FICO score, but at the same time, the Vantage scores are just as important. So don't.
So you're saying financial institutions are using both?
Absolutely, for sure. It's cheaper to use Vantage scores. So instead of these lenders purchasing FICO scores, which are more expensive, they purchase the Vantage score because it's cheaper. And they're for-profit businesses. So obviously the goal is to save money. It's not how much money you
Right.
make, it's how much money you can keep in
Hmm.
business. It goes for everybody. Experian is doing the same thing. Everybody in business wants to increase revenue and decrease expenses.
Mm. Makes sense. On that note, what do you think the biggest misconception, other than the credit score, you tackled that part? What do you think is another big misconception when it comes to credit in the industry that you think a lot of people misunderstand, if there's anything else?
Oh, big misconception.
Or is the credit score one the biggest one?
That's probably the biggest credit score. Um, you don't have to spend a lot of money to fix your credit. One of the
What
biggest
about what about the one where they say you should leave a balance like 30%? I don't forget what the percentage is.
Mm.
Never like pay your credit off in full. Always leave a little bit of a balance. How much truth is there to that?
Man, I'm gonna tell you right now, there's so many gurus out here just giving out information that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true in certain instances. It's not true globally. Everybody's situation is different. And this is why the knowledge part about credit is the most essential piece to this entire thing. You being informed and you knowing how to manage your own credit profile, your own credit financial situation. Let's just say that, that is where it's important. And so when they say that, in certain cases, that's true. Like,
Meaning that you should have never pay off the full balance.
So for instance, let's say you haven't used your credit card for a long time.
Okay.
Let's say you got a Navy Federal credit card and you've had a balance on there for like 3 years and you finally pay it off. You pay it all the way off. Because you don't use it, they'll say, hey, I'm closing this.
Mm-hmm.
They'll close it on you. A lot of times. Sometimes that happens. So something that stemmed out of there, but also it also stemmed out of saying like how to get the perfect 850 credit score. You don't never want to pay it all the way off. But when it comes to revolving credit cards, like Amex credit cards, where it's a open-ended credit card, meaning like you got to pay off that balance every month. You can't leave a balance. Those, you got to pay that off. But like let's say just a regular general revolving credit card, it's good to leave a balance. Like 1%, the closest, the better. Depending on what they say. I think the FICO score back then was like FICO that they were using. I can't even remember, but that was the strategy. Leave like 1%, between 1% and 5%. But I will say this across the board. This hasn't changed in the algorithm. Anytime you spend over 30%, that's when your credit will be negatively affected because credit usage or credit utilization is worth 30% of your credit score. I was thinking payment history, but yeah. So a lot of times, another misconception is people got bad credit. No, you got a utilization problem, meaning that you spending too much and you're not paying it down. So that utilization, that's another misconception. That's one of the biggest ones right there. You might have a bunch of inquiries, and then you got utilization that's at like 56%. That's gonna drop your score because I think 30% of your credit score is about 160 something points, 68 points.
That's crazy. He's looking it up, y'all, because we want to give you guys the facts.
Yeah, let's get this is recorded, so I got to give you the actual fact. Yeah, so 30%, I was correct. So credit utilization ratio is also one of the most important. It accounts for 30% of your credit score.
Wow. So credit utilization accounts for 30% of your credit score. It's more about your credit profile mix versus your just actual credit. And what's the third criteria? I feel like there's another one.
What?
Or are those the two most important?
No, the third one, the number one is
payment history.
Payment history, that's worth 35%. That's the highest. So you get a late payment, it could drop your score as much as 100 points, 50 to 100 points.
Wow. 50 to 100 points from late payments.
One late payment could do that.
Jeez. And that's like, even if it's like you're paying like a cable cell phone bill, it don't matter. Like,
it don't matter.
Don't matter how big the amount.
That algorithm looks at payment history like that. It's worth 35%. So understanding the score factors is very essential because now you're able to gauge on how to, manage your credit, manage your debt. And then you be more inclined to say, you know what, I ain't getting this late payment. Maybe either I'm going to call them or I'm going to, maybe borrow some money, pay it off, and then give it back. It's better to do a cash advance to get a late payment. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. That's eye
Yeah.
opening. Actually, that I didn't even know that. You're kicking game to me right now, and I have a good payment history, but I didn't know it was worth that much.
Yeah,
That's
man.
wild.
Yeah, and for me, like it's not so much about just fixing your credit. It's more important for me to, provide people with the knowledge. That's why, like in my mission, it said Credit Fixrr is a DIY credit repair platform that empowers consumers with the knowledge, the
Hmm.
tools, and the resources to fix, build, and leverage their credit.
Mm.
So, right now in my missions, in Credit Fixer's mission, like we're at the tail end of the fixing credit part. We're about to launch our automated dispute flow system, God willing, this Wednesday. So fingers crossed, you
Mm.
know. And so we're gonna wrap up the fix stage. Now we're in the build stage to where now we're showing people how to build their credit with not only
Mm.
credit builders but trade lines. And I just most recently reached out to someone that has primary trade lines that are
Mm.
primaries that show up on your credit report: mortgages, auto loans, personal loans that will show up with age and history as a primary. And so that's going to be integrated into the platform. But not only that, um, I'm working on funding sequences that once your credit profile reaches a certain stage, after while you're fixing your credit, we'll be able to, you know, point you to a funding sequence to where now you can go and build your credit that way as well.
Mm.
So, man, this platform is really growing. We're about to launch our own community inside of Credit Fixer, so you'll be able to chat with other people. It's called Credit Fixer Connect, and it's funny, I spoke about this Credit Credit Fixer Connect about 2.5 years ago in an interview, and like here we are now about to
Mm.
release it. We're about a month and a half way of releasing it. So, man, I've been on a mission, man. I've been on a mission, bro.
Congratulations on that, man. I'm speaking that new feature into existence. That launch is gonna happen
Yeah,
successfully. I'm speaking that out there
for
into
sure.
the ether. Um, let's talk about Compton, Compton, California, IA.
Shout out to Compton. Hell yeah.
Your hometown, also a hometown of DeMar DeRozan, who was here in Toronto last night for the Vince Carter retirement jersey ceremony. Um, my boy Drake being so petty. I'm not feeling it. Anyways, that's a topic for another discussion. So your hometown, often when people hear about places like Compton, they think about gangs, violence, drugs, what have you. So my question is to you, Kabir, what's Compton like today? And
Mhm.
what does Compton mean to you?
Wow. I'll say what Compton means to me first. Compton is it means the world to me. I would say it gave me the heart that I have. You
Mm.
know, it taught me how to be strong. It taught me how to stand on my own. It taught me how to, challenge my fears. It taught me I had those experiences growing up young, facing, you know, uh, having to get in fights all the time.
Mm.
I'm a happy person, but back then I had to, it wasn't too much smiling. It was
Mm.
more so like I had to hide that. And so Compton is just a beautiful place, man. It's just so many things. It brings so much out of you. It's so much creativity there. Um, Believe it or not, man, Compton was like growing up there, it was like family.
Mm.
Like even this year, man, I was in LA for a conference and I drove back to my old, you asked me what it's like now. Like I can tell you about my old complex that I grew up in Compton, man. It's so different, man. It looks like it's just nice in there. I'm just like, whoa, what's going on? Like
Mm.
nobody I know is really there except one person that I grew up with. Um, and so it's just different now. Um, I can't really speak on the land now because I don't live there. But
Mm.
man, Compton is just still to me, it's still a beautiful place, man. So many different people that come there. Growing up when I was there, man, it was just a lot of black and Hispanic people, and that was our culture out there, man. So
Mm.
um, I just love that place, man. Everywhere I go, I rep Compton, man. I rep Compton, LA, just the whole, Los Angeles. unified district, but
Hmm.
I mean, that's my place, man. That's my heart right there.
I love that, man. Um, so this kind of ties into the last question I just asked. So you're a Morehouse
Hmm.
graduate.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to all the Morehouse graduates out
Yes,
there.
sir. Shout out to Morehouse, Spell House. Let's get it.
And before starting Credit Fixer, you were at Boeing.
Hmm.
So my question is, how did you make it out?
Hmm.
When I say make it out, I mean Compton, that is. Because I asked that because people often talk about how difficult it is to make it out of the hood or at risk communities. So, was that the case for you? If so, what did you do specifically to make it out?
Yeah, having the teachings, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad really helped
Hmm.
me, walk a certain way, go left when everybody was going right, talk to women different. Um, my respect for women was much different than, I could say for some of my peers. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, man, just listening to him,
Hmm.
being in the Nation of Islam, that
Hmm.
was a protection for me. That was a barrier of protection because not only did, me being a nation save me from things because believe it or not, the minister has made friends for, us all over the world, not to mention all over the cities and states. The respect was just there. And they just
Hmm.
understood like how we move and who we were and how I mean, I never carried a gun. I never
Hmm.
thought to carry a gun. Well, I can't say that part, but
Hmm.
I can honestly say that these teachings was a protective barrier for me because I was just
Hmm.
it was no fear in me, And funny you asked me, you know, um, a question about like how was I actually had to go to anger management growing up,
Hmm.
and because I like I said I'm a nice person, I'm cool, I'm always smiling and laughing, but I fought
Yeah.
a lot and I love to
Hmm.
fight. Like it was
Mm.
you said something wrong and it was a problem with me, but now but like I said, them teachers helped me learn how to approach things properly and deal with
Right.
people properly and proper handling of people and just being good to people, regardless of, what they do. So that kind of helped me maneuver really well through any environment, whether I was, at the boards at Boeing. I stood on business of who I was. I wasn't gonna change who I was. You was gonna know who I was, and that was it. And that these teachings gave me that type of confidence in
Mm.
being me. As soon as I walk in the door, my name is Khabir Muhammad. I'm like, okay, what are you? You're not from the Middle East. So like I said, man, my dad told me one thing because I remember when I was like fourth grade, going to the store, me and my brother, and the kids in Compton used to make fun of me and my brother name because my brother named Kalfani
Mhm.
and I'm Kabir. And they say, who gonna drink the beer? Who gonna milk the cow? And so I'm just like, yeah, it was some little kids stuff. But at the time, I'm just like, man, I hate my name.
Yeah.
And my dad said, he said, you know what, man? He said, your name, one day your name is gonna open up doors for you and it's gonna close doors for you. But it's
Mm.
gonna open up more doors for you than close those doors for you. And
Wise words.
man, when I tell you these doors been open everywhere I went.
Mm. I love
So
that.
yeah, man, my dad gave me shout out to my pops, man.
No, there's a couple of things that came across my mind. Um, so the part about the names, I remember being in junior high school. There started to be like some kids from Africa that came into the school,
Mhm.
and, and they have their original, authentic African names. And being a kid, growing up on this side of the pond, if you will, you're just like, what kind of name is that? Right? Similar to those kids in your neighborhood that was picking on your name because you have a, Muslim Arabic first and last name. We were kind of like, picking on kids because name's different. And crazy looking back at that now in hindsight. I remember years ago, I thought about it. I was like, how crazy is that? I'm making fun I was making fun of a kid just like me when he's the one that has the real authentic name of his origin when I have the slave name, so to speak. You know, I had that level of realization. But obviously when you're 11, 12 years old,
Of course.
you're not thinking on that level. You're a kid. You're doing kid stuff. You know what I mean? Kids make fun of each other. They being playful, all that stuff. But when I was an adult, when I was a man, I was like, this is he was the one with the original name.
Yeah.
Corey ain't African
Mm.
on any level. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's low key. I'll share this here. My government last name is Roberts, but like low key during the pandemic when everyone was kind of like at home, I got into my reading bag heavy. I was always been a reader at least since college,
Word up.
and I started reading the biography of Malcolm X.
Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
powerful book.
powerful book. And I started toying with like, yo, maybe I should drop my last name. And that's why I just started going by my first and my middle name, Kareem, because at least that's closer to the origin. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the reason why I kind of lead with Corey Kareem, and because I haven't legally dropped the Roberts last name, but it's something I've been toying with in my mind for the last couple of years. But yeah, man, that really resonated with me because I thought about that moment for myself. And then what I hear you talk about the NOI, the Nation of Islam, what I also hear is community, the power of having a strong, supportive community around you to protect you, to offer you guidance, to allow you to, make wise decisions. You know what I'm saying? You use the term, when everyone's going right, you go left, right? So that's powerful to me because then it's like, you know, I had this conversation. I was doing a podcast episode with some young ladies from New York, but they actually live in California. And one of the things we talk about is how there's a lot of black media, meaning like TV shows, film, movies, kind of regurgitating the same narrative. You know, single mom, gangbanger, drug kingpin, you name it, whatever. Trauma porn, right? And we're like, yeah, we get that. That's part of the culture. I'm not going to deny that. But like, that's not everyone's life within the community. And we talked about this lack of diversity within the community. And I bring that up because we don't see enough of your story. You know what I'm saying? When someone thinks of Compton or whatever, they think of very set few things. We don't see the guy that came out of Compton, went to Morehouse, okay, number one, graduated top of his class, worked for Boeing, number two, software engineer, number three, comes out with his own credit repair company. Like, we don't see enough of those stories. We see the same things circulating online, and it paints this picture on the entire community that we only do sports, entertainment, that. So I'm that's why I was curious to know, like, if there was something special that allowed you to kind of escape the typical narrative when you came from an environment like Compton.
I would like to think that, I'm not special in the sense that I'm any different from anybody else. You know, it's so interesting, man. I'm be honest with you, I'm more of an introvert than I am extrovert. And this is why like I always like seeing other people do great. But I see growing up where I'm from, just like anywhere in any city and state, you got a Compton area like that. And there's brilliant people in that area that's probably more brilliant. I know more brilliant than me. I've seen people myself. I'm like, damn, he's brilliant. She's brilliant. She's dope. I wish I could be like that. And I think the moment that I decided that I'm going to be great, that's what separated me. I stopped trying to be like everybody else. I recognize that I can't be like he or her who is great in whatever they do. That's the gift that God gave them, And so I remember the minister, and this is what I'm telling you, like these teachings, help me do certain things because I heard the Minister Farrakhan say that. He said, thinking too little of yourself is equal to the sin of thinking too much of yourself. And so a lot of us don't think enough of ourselves that we should be doing what we could do. A lot of we looking at these gurus and these people showing they shiny cards and chains and watches and, they hanging around each other and trying to show you that, hey, unless you over here, you not. Man, to hell with all of that. You just as great, probably much greater than them. And half the time, 90% of them don't even have enough character to stay there. None of them, a lot of them don't have no type of character at all. You probably, once you around them, you probably wouldn't even want to be around them. And so that's my thing. It's like thinking enough of yourself and really going through the motions and learning like, hey, man, I'm going through my own path. I'm going to be great. And you can be great. It don't look like what you see online. That's what that is. What you bring is what they should be looking at. So don't discount yourself. And that's the thing that I had to grow into and be confident enough in. And getting fired from my job was one of the things that just was like the final straw for me because I heard it enough. It was like, you know what, let me do something for myself. And we all can do something for ourselves. We all can solve problems. If you want to, solve them the right way. Do right by people. Be upfront, So it's just like this narrative that this machine is pushing, like, oh, in order for you to be this, you gotta be an athlete, you gotta be a mean girl, you gotta play this part, you gotta show jewelry and chain. And this is why I'm gonna give shout out to LaRussell, man. It's not paid, but this man walk around in Crocs and and he really telling his life story. Right. The things he did, womanize and all this type of stuff. He just give you the real, and it sound dope as hell. Cause that's what people really need. They need people who gonna be authentic. And like in my space, there's no authenticity in this space. There's none. These people, the gurus, the ones you looking at, 90% of them lying and capping. They just good salesmen. And not to Rainer, I really told myself I wasn't gonna get on here and really say anything negative about anybody. And I'm not saying anybody in particular, but I think it just needs to be said that, you are powerful. And that was the difference. It wasn't nothing special about me. It's just like I'm special, just like everybody else is. And I decided to, believe that.
I love that, brother. I love that message. I love it. And listen, talk your ish, man. If you got to call it out, call a spade, man. We don't hold back. This is a transparency platform. We leave it out there. So, my last real question here, big question for you here, Khabir, is throughout your life and career thus far, what do you believe is the best lesson you've learned from all the challenges and the failures that you faced and overcame? Best lesson, or one of the best lessons?
Best lesson? Man, this one's hard. Best lesson? Be authentic.
Why'd you choose that one?
Because at the end of the day, it's going to have to come out in order for you to go to the next stage of where you're trying to go. You just got to be you. Just got to be you. You can fake it as long as possible, but it just ain't going to feel right. It ain't going to come out right. It ain't going to give it that the right amount of shine that it could get if you were just authentic. And that's that right there.
I love that, man, and I could relate to that. I feel that 100%. And sometimes I think the challenge with that is some people don't know how to be themselves. They may maybe not be in an environment that is conducive enough for them to feel like they can be themselves, or they don't feel comfortable being themselves because they're afraid of X, whatever X is for that person. But someone's going to receive that. That's listening to that. Whoever that is, that message is for you. So, Khabir, what's funny is, we talk about 3 questions. Obviously, I asked you more than that. So the 3 questions part is actually coming up right now. This is where I ask you something more on the fun, silly side. And I ask you 3 really quick questions. Now, this part, I want you to just give me the first answer that comes to your mind
Okay.
as fast as you can.
All
All right. And these are random. I'm coming up with them right now on the spot. I don't even know what I want to ask you, really.
right.
So my first question is, what's something that you used to be afraid of or comfortable with that you're now confident in or do well?
Speaking in front of people.
That's a good one. Yeah. They say, that they say people fear public speaking more than death itself. That's wild to me, but
Mm.
I can see it. My next one is, if you had only 6 months left to live, what would you do differently, if anything?
Spend more time with my children.
That's another really good
My
one.
wife. Yeah.
That's another really good one there. And the last one is, what is a book that either really inspired you or a quote / mantra that you live by currently? Either one. A book that really inspired you or a quote or mantra that you live by currently?
I was gonna say message to the black man in America, but I love to give justice to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe no, that would too, but I would
Mm-hmm.
say a book that I'm currently reading. I don't know. It's an audio book. Oh, you know what? I would say the Bezos letters.
The Bezos letters, as in Jeff Bezos?
Jeff Bezos.
Mm.
You talk about becoming a CEO and you talk about being a CEO. I would say that book right there gives you a lot of insight on a lot of things. So coming from that hustler to becoming the CEO, you get out. It goes back to that. You get out of life who you are, not what you want. And this man literally gave the game to everybody in his company. So he was literally training them as he was going.
Mm.
And they in turn was becoming leaders in their own right because he literally sharing with them the game. And it's funny how I do my meetings, and sometimes they say it's not good to share everything with everyone, you
Mm.
know. But like a lot of times I have a group call and like I be sharing everything about like the company. And I don't really share like the finances too much, but I share numbers. I share so people have an understanding. But these are my day ones. Like for me, I feel like we're at the ground up. But
Yeah.
I was inspired by the Bezos letters to kind of do that to kind of help them understand how business goes. And I'm gonna say this real quick. If you ever hear a story from The Rock, how Vince McMahon taught The Rock the business, because in real quick story, I don't know how much time we got.
No, yeah, you got time. Go for it.
Okay, so The Rock, um, he came to Vince McMahon one year, was like, how much is Stone Cold getting paid? He said 1 million. He said, I want 2 million. And McMahon, he was like, damn, this young kid got the balls to ask me this. And so he said, you know what? He said, you know what I want you to do? I want you to go talk to my CFO of the company, and I want you to spend about 30 days with him, learn the entire business. I want you to learn the entire business of, the WWF at the time. He said, cool. He said, it took me 2 weeks. I was studying it day in and day out. Came back to Vince McMahon. He said, so how much money you gonna make this year? He said, I'll probably make around 4 to 5 million. I believe this is how the story went.
Mm-hmm.
And so The Rock is telling it. So I'm kind of paraphrasing. He was like for about 4 to 5 million. And then he said, no, you're gonna make about 30 million this year.
Mm.
And because if you had taken that deal that you wanted 2 million,
Mm-hmm.
The Rock, no, I think The Rock said, I'm gonna make about 15. He said, no, you're gonna make about 30 million. Because he understood he went from 2 million saying, I just want 2 million. It was like, if I gave you that 2 million, that's all you would have just made. but he learned the business enough to know, like, damn, I can make 15 million. He said, nah, you gonna make 30 million. He said that was the biggest year that was his
ever had with them. I believe that, because look at The Rock now. I mean, XFL and becoming the highest paid male actor in Hollywood. So I believe that. That makes sense. So I just gotta make sure that from my own notes, just so all my listeners know, I was taking notes here. You get out of life who you are, not what you are. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That was from Eric Thomas, I believe. He might have gotten it from somebody else, but I heard that back in 2016, and I never forgot it.
You get out of life who you are, not what you are. Yeah. Eric Thomas, E.T., the hip hop preacher, if you guys don't know. And the last one you said, in order for the CEO to grow, the hustler must die. How did you say that?
Right. So the way that goes is, he said the hustler has to die in order for the CEO to emerge.
The hustler has to die in order for the CEO to emerge. I love that. I had to take that down for myself, y'all. Literally putting that in my iPhone notes for those who are listening. So, guys, this concludes this episode of 3 Questions with Corey Kareem. So, Khabir, for all my listeners, my audience that would love to reach out to you because they want to get access to the platform, or they want to collaborate with you in some way, shape, or form, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so best way to reach out to me is via you can shoot me an email at info@CreditFixrr.com, or you could just go to CreditFixrr on all platforms. Maybe send me a message there. I'll get it. Yeah, I'm definitely looking for collaborations. Definitely looking for you guys to really, come in and manage and fix and leverage your credit. So I can send you the website. That's CreditFixrr.com. Actually, you can see it up here. So it's CreditFixrr.com. And for those who are listening, it's CreditFixrr.com.
There you go. CreditFixrr. So, guys, that concludes this episode of 3 Questions with Corey Kareem. As I usually like to end all my episodes, sometimes you don't have to learn anything new. You just need to hear that somebody else went through it too. So, other than that, myself and Khabir are out. Peace and love. Until the next time.
Clockwise, 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 clockwise.